And we're live. Thank you, Stephen. Good afternoon. Welcome to our weekly Recruiter Zone live chat. This live chat is sponsored by Firefish. Oh, I've done it the wrong way. Firefish Software. And today we're joined by two guests, myself and Steve, and we're joined by two guests. Originally we were meant to have three, we had some technical difficulties. So Katrina, I'm hoping that Pete will still have the opportunity to chat with us through the sidebar. So last week we ran a Recruiter Zone session ahead of our tech event, and we were talking about lots of different things. And one of those things was automation and artificial intelligence. And we had Katrina on as a guest, but we also had Bill Borman. And we only had, 10 minutes with each guest. So during that session, one of the things Bill said was that 80% of sourcing and recruitment could be automated. Now, that's something which I think is wrong. And I just don't believe it can be true. And I know you don't either, Katrina. And so we're going to talk a bit more today about why we shouldn't let recruiters be overtaken by robots. So do you want shall I let Mark introduce himself first and then we'll come to you, Katrina?
Yeah, sure, perfect.
So Mark is your guest and you're our guest on our show. So Mark, if you want to introduce yourself.
2 degrees of separation. Sure.
Yes.
Mark Lundgren. I'm a sourcer, I'm a recruiter. I currently work with Anaplan, which is American/British SaaS software company, and sourcing technical people for their London office.
Okay, so Katrina, do you want to introduce yourself? I know you run your own shows, everyone knows who you are, but do you want to introduce yourself and then talk about what this general concept is we're going to cover today?
Yeah, so I'm Katrina Collier, and I'm a social recruiting trainer and speaker. And I think the reason that I've got to this point is that I started out teaching the sourcing, which was all you needed, because I could just find people and send them a message and they'd respond. But I've started this whole Be Human campaign because people aren't responding. I mean, it's a bit like Alison Cruz with her Fight Spam campaign. People have just turned down the volume. So I'm very passionate about the candidate engagement, the messaging, all of it, how we call people, just how we treat people as people. And I don't believe that we can automate being human at all, which I know plenty of. John wants to know where the dogs are. Brilliant. Sorry, that completely distracted me. Part of being human. I don't think we can automate the emotion of a human being, which is what the messaging all interrupts. And hence, which bit is Bill wanting us to automate with that 80% of automation?
To be a devil's advocate, I would say that there are plenty of views out there who say that lots of what we do as individuals can be automated because there are dull, repetitive processes where there's very little thought gone into it. So there's a lot of what humans try to do that robots could do much more efficiently. But there are, of course, areas where we have to allow that human element, that fuzziness, fuzzy intelligence that humans apply to all the little decision-making parts of the
Can I give you a strange comparison on that then?
Yeah.
So I was sitting on this really tiny little plane right behind the pilot in Africa.
Yeah.
And I watched him take off his long-distance glasses and put on his reading glasses and take his hands off the steering wheel, whatever it's called, and start reading the paper.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, so this, as it's going from A to B with nothing much in between, is just running by a machine. I had no problem with that. But boy, was I glad there was a human being sitting there for when things went wrong. Because again, you still need the human input into the automation, no?
Yeah, that's sorry, Stephen. I was going to say that's exactly what
on that very analogy, and actually it's very apt because people would say, well, I want a human being to take off and land because those are the parts that are really tricky and we can't leave those to the computers to do. But of course, very soon, and in fact, I know that it does happen, there are computers out there that will take off and land better than a human being and can take into account, all the variables that a pilot has to for the taking off and landing. You would still want a human being to be there, but there are automated planes out there that are taking off and landing with perhaps not human cargo, but stuff in the back that's pretty valuable. So Bill would say here, there are processes in the flying of planes that can be automated. There are processes in almost everything that can be automated. And of course, the fear in all employment is that whether you're a lawyer or an accountant or any number of types of jobs, there are large swathes of the content of each job that can be automated. But the key
he specifically said sourcing. So I'd like to pass that to Mark. I mean, the reason I got Mark in, I teach this, and even though I hear it all the time, I wanted to grab in, SCP as well, bless him. But, Mark, who also sources, and actually hear what you think of the automation of sourcing, or at least 80% of it.
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, there's lots of, each individual thing that we do, there's things that can be automated and sometimes should be automated because, frankly, it's probably a waste of our time if doing it manually. But the things where you need the human touch and the human interaction, a lot of it, like up to kind of identifying and finding out, we can all make strings and we can tell a computer what we're looking for. But with the current technology being what it is, we still have a lot of things that there's so many false positives. And if we just let a computer run what we do, we're just going to increase the amount of spam. And we all get the messages of some recruiter somewhere who obviously haven't read your profile. You just got hit by certain keywords. And all of a sudden they're offering me jobs that I might have recruited for, therefore they're on my profile somewhere, but would never be anything that I would actually do. I just see if we automate more of that, all we're going to get is even more of those. And that's not going to help anybody. I mean, I look into a lot of sales technology and a lot of marketing technology, and then they're looking at exactly the same issues as us. It's all about automation and what can we do. But cold email from a marketing or sales point of view, they're used to having a 2.6% response rate. If I see a recruiter with a 2.6% response rate, there's definitely something wrong. Because even if I get a response, I'm not interested. That's still a response for me. That's obviously not the response I want. But at least I know I probably hit the right person just at the wrong time. And yes, there's things like that we can automate, and there's things I automate about when it's going to send out. If I do some of my best work is done at 4 a.m, that doesn't mean I'm going to send some candidate an email at 4 a.m. I'm going to set it to the best time that I know that they're either on their way to work or on their way from work, or they're on their lunch break, so that there's a higher chance I'm going to get to talk to them. But I don't see that, the whole process being automated. And that scares me to kind of see that, there's a lot of things that can be done automatically with a human touch, such that, using videos more, like stop trying to have everything as a template email. How do we get, yourself in front of people before you actually get to talk to them? Can we use video, and things like that? But I don't see 80% of what we do something that can be automated.
Because also, if that automation worked, like you just said, it would work in the marketing. I get people that write Katrina at thesearchologist.com and then write hi, comma, enter, and next line. And I'm like, I immediately don't want to read this email. But it's just type my name, but that's because they're using some kind of automated email system that hasn't filled my name in.
No, and that's...
Even though it looks like an actual person-to-person email. And I replied back to one yesterday, and I just wrote, "Oh, well, it's really good to see that you really research everything that you do, but you couldn't use my name." And he replied back, "I hope your day gets better." And I'm like, I've given you valuable feedback on how you could improve your email response rate so easily, and his response was, "Have a better day." And I thought, asshole, delete, block, never going to use them.
But one of the reasons why, Katrina, I think is it works in enough cases that people are prepared to do it. So you can automate it, should you automate it. And if what you're looking for is a person for a job, then maybe you can and you should. If you're looking,
I don't think going forward it's going to be good enough. Like Mark just said, 2% is not good enough. And you take what it's like in our day with the phone going off, the emails going off, the messaging platforms going off, just all of the noise we have while we're sitting here, the Twitter's going off, everything, right? We're constantly being torn in different directions. So why should your email get answered? I mean, I just think it's going to get lower and lower and lower, or even your call.
So if we were to say that 20% of all candidates out there
stand out. Sorry.
20% of all candidates out there were Katrinas, for example. They were all Katrinas, and they would be sensitive to approaches that appeared automated. Is it okay to discard that 20% and say, well, if we annoy all those Katrinas, at least the other 80%, they're doing what we're after. So the on balance is working for us. So let's not bother about the Katrinas.
But the 20% that you're ignoring could be the ones that take your bottom line. Like, you know, they could, I've gone blurry. They could be super productive ones. That's how productive I am. I've gone blurry. So, but no, I mean, you shouldn't be doing that. I mean, I think one of the things Bill was talking about with the automation, though, was bias. But I mean, the whole recruitment process is biased from the get-go. It's all about deselecting people, isn't it? It's about rejecting people. So I don't think that was right either. We've got a question here, but it's not my show. I'm going
to ask the question that we have here. In actual fact, there's an interesting point here, which is should automation be seen as an additional tool for our repertoire? Because I think it's often looked at not as additional tools, just a way of replacing other tools or replacing us. And it isn't really. We should bolt in that automation where it's most useful. And before we get to the end of this chat, I want us to decide where that automation is most useful. And we'll share some of those ideas of these are 5 things you should automate. These are things you shouldn't. I think that'd be quite a useful way to finish.
I mean, I don't know if it's ICA or ICA. I'm sorry. We did this last week as well.
I'm going with ICA, but I could be wrong.
ICA. Yeah, could be ICA. Anyway, whichever way I say your name. The things like calendar scheduling and all that kind of stuff. You know, I put a calendar on my website and people just book a call in with me. It's great. That's awesome automation.
But I do the same for candidates. Yeah.
Okay.
Easy the process.
Okay, so we've got, I'll tell you what, let's do the list now. So we've got the calendar invites for candidates.
Yeah, that's managing hiring manager feedback, somehow getting it so that there's some automation with that, getting them just to hit, I guess, targets and when they're going to reply and stuff like that.
Now, I've seen that used. It's exactly what I've seen used, which I think is a fabulous, I mean, it is automation, but it's DocuSign used it for recruiters. And it was that when you sign the contract when your client agrees to your fees, what they also agree to is how many days after the CVs are submitted they will have read them, how many days after the interview they will give feedback. And because it's automated, 48 hours after those CVs go out, the hiring manager's getting messages saying, say yes or no. Say yes or no. And that apparently is a really, really good process that has worked. But I don't see DocuSign talking about it an awful lot to agencies.
No.
Who doesn't like that? Which person doesn't like that in the process?
I like that. And I think actually in-house would that work, Mark, for getting your hiring managers to reply to the in-house recruiters and the in-house sources?
Yeah, it depends on the system. And, you know, we work quite well with the managers and the interviewers that I have. They kind of gotten used to the system and getting the invites in the system, and they're going to get chased on that a day after they've done the interview. So I think, but yeah, the bigger you get, the more difficult it gets. You get people who are used to working with different systems. I think the problem is trying to get too many pieces of software at once. So if you can get it all in one system, that's best. If you get too many emails from too many different sources, it's just going to get overload. I mean, we have enough things that pings us on Slack and Messenger and email. And some managers just have an obscene amount of roles that they're looking for, so would have a lot of those. Yeah. So I think it's all about kind of looking at the level and looking at what's the output of it. Again, a lot of the time it comes down to just having a process of saying, okay, we know we've had these interviews. If at all possible, can we just sit down 5 minutes and you take me through the feedback? Yes, we want to have it in written form as well. But at the end of the day, if it's a stage where all I need is a thumbs up, a thumbs down, then, if at all possible, that's what I do. If I know that somebody just spoke to one of my candidates, then I'll ask them, how did it go? Just so I can know, can I push them on further in the process, or do we need something else? Regardless of what the system is.
Do you tend to do that by phone with your candidates?
The phone, or like if I can, get them on video. But yeah, it's mainly on phone. But it depends on kind of how I talk to them to begin with.
Yeah, because I mean that was another thing that again was sort of slammed down. Oh, don't use the phone. But it's like, it's the quickest way to get that response, right? So you said go to your hiring manager, get the response in person, because in 5 minutes we can say so much more than sitting out, typing it out, and it becomes a chore. Yeah. So again, that's the kind of thing you can't automate. I love what Steve Ward's written there, by the way.
Yeah, let's read that one out. Stephen, you can read that out.
It would be awesome to have automated messages for the preparation for interview, prompting each component of research at different points leading up to the interview date. The new BA app does this in flight preparation.
That's really clever. I really like that.
I tell you what's interesting about that, though, is that I've been judging some awards for Global Recruiter, talking about client service, and some of them talk about the fact they prepare their candidates for interview as if that's something which makes them different. So when you're still thinking that it's not part of the standard process, then you're quite a long way off automating it. Yeah. But you could do. I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I mean, it horrifies me we still need to do it, but then it shows for those of us who have a sourcing mind how we would naturally do the research. We would go and look at the Glassdoor reviews. We would go and look up the company on LinkedIn. We would go and read their website. We would do that. So it kind of shocks me that job seekers don't do it, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Katrina, let me ask you this, Katrina. Do you think every job seeker is entitled to have a telephone conversation with the recruiter, that they need to have that human interaction rather than having everything automated? And do they expect that?
I have differing points of view on this. Obviously, it depends. If you're doing extreme high volume, look, I understand from a recruiter point of view that they can't. But take my sister, 20 years of running her own company in event management. The woman has done everything you can do in that space. I mean, she's amazing. Yeah. Could she get around the automated applicant tracking system thing that went, do you have a degree? And she's like, no, I've got 20 years of experience. Rejected. Yeah. Rejected. Yeah. And I kept saying to her, come here. This is how we find the name. This is how you get around it. But my God, was it such hard work for her and so unfair. So, yes, I felt she deserved a conversation with them for sure. And I think job seekers do.
My point is this, all the time that's saved by the automation should give a recruiter more time to make the calls. So the automation is actually helping them to do the job. So the candidate should be unaware. It should be seamless to candidates that there's automation going on. They shouldn't be aware of being handled by an algorithm. They should be aware of their interactions with another human being. And that other human being has the time to do so because a lot of the dull, boring stuff is being handled by automated processes.
I mean, I quite like, is it Job Pal? The little, and I know I'm talking automation, whatever it's called, chatbot. But actually, they're being really careful in how they're implementing it. And people know they're talking to a chatbot. They know they're not talking to a human being. But at least, and I know Zalando Tech were looking at it because they were going, well, we can get people to the website, but we need to keep them because they're highly sought after. We need to keep them on the website. So that was kind of helping guide and travel and take some of that automation out. That could be the Q&A stuff you get all the time. Like how long do I get feedback on my CV and what's the process and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And again, you should add in that video that Mark was talking about into that process as well. Mm-hmm.
So for in-house recruiters, if I was an in-house recruiter managing a talent pool of individuals that I thought at some point may well be potential employees of this company, I haven't counted them out altogether, the potential down the line. I want to maintain a relationship with them. Now, I want it to feel natural to them, and I want to be sending them messages on a fairly regular basis, just to let them know that we've still got them in mind, and have an alert set up that if anything changes on the LinkedIn, it prompts me or prompts the system to then send another message to them. Are you okay? Are you thinking of changing? Are you now definitely looking to move? And so on. So the automated parts of it can be running in the background, but it prompts me, the recruiter, at key points to make contact with that individual and have the discussion, because some things you can't have a back and forth interaction on.
In some ways, though, that's kind of a bit like email marketing, which of course is going back to that 2%. You know, people like, you know, even my own, you know, just I watch the reader rate drop all the time. They're like, I really want to see this, but they don't see it. Google Mail, for example, would deliver it to the promo tab. But that's where I think something like Candidate ID is quite cool in the respect that, you know, it's sending out all different stuff and it's tracking all over the place. You know, it's white papers, it's Facebook interaction, it's tweets, it's all sorts. I mean, I don't understand 100% how it works. That looked quite cool. I'm not going to sell it for them. I just was thought it was quite cool.
Yeah, and I'm actually hoping they're going to come to the tech event, because I think that there's a load of great stuff in there which is adding value, and that's I'm not trying to. Actually, Stephen said something interesting, and I'm going to come to Mark with a question in a minute. But Stephen, you said with the free time you've got through automation, you could make calls, but you don't have free time because you just have less recruiters. But agencies, agencies are not automating so that their staff have more time. They're automating so they need less consultants to fill more jobs, and the same for in-house. Yeah,
that's a false economy, I'd say.
Well, I'm not saying you're wrong,
but it's reality.
It's the reality. Yeah, that's the thing. Mark, I have a question for you. What one thing will you never automate?
The call. Actually talking to people. I mean, I'm not going to set somebody in front of a hiring manager if I haven't spoken to them. They can have the best CV in the world and, you know, all the references that of everybody that you've ever wanted. But there's things that I know they're not going to write. I need to know what their hot buttons are. It's not going to be money necessarily, but what is it? Is it location of where they are now? There's something that they're missing. We all have that. No matter what we do, there's like, if I had this, it would make my life even better. My question isn't why are you looking? Because most of the time they're not when I talk to them. It's what would be the ideal job for you?
Can I refer you to the thing that keeps recruiters up at night is that if they send a terrible candidate to a client and the client sees this person as a representative of your judgment and they're awful. So when you send a candidate out that you've not spoken to, that you've not gone into any detail with, and they turn up for interview and are all kinds of shocking, then that reflects really badly on you. So how can you even possibly trust in sending a candidate out for interview that you've not done the due diligence with?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be we you know, when I started, it was like you have to meet people. And I know a lot of headhunting companies are still like, you know, that's one of their selling points. We meet everybody. Yeah. And that's nice, except when you're in a role that, you know, most of us are, where you're just not doing one side anymore. You're not doing one country. And I'm not going to waste 3 weeks and waiting for some person to come in and meet with me for an hour. And then, you know, wait for another 3 weeks for them to meet with whoever my client is at that point. So I believe that email, phone is as good as it gets. I don't need to meet people in person, but I would never actually have I want to speak to people, even if it's a short conversation, because it's like, I don't need to go through their CV. I honestly don't care because I've already seen that. Otherwise I wouldn't have contacted them. What I want to know is what's the things I don't know.
Would you say
we're not going to write that on LinkedIn, are we? You know, we're not going to write that on our CV. It's a marketing flyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can actually write a decent one. Sorry.
Are candidates being conditioned to not have as much human interaction? Are they being conditioned to not want to receive telephone calls, to not have Skype calls, to only have emails? There are
I don't think it's a condition.
Who only will respond to an email, who, if you call them at their, you know, on their mobile or at their work or on any other process, they'll reject it out of hand. They say, I only want to instant message.
And that's fair. I mean, like, I don't call people directly unless, you know, I've set something up with them. So I talk to developers all day. And I well know that, like, somebody who's sitting and actually coding, and even if they're not, they're at work. If it's a salesperson, I have no problem calling them because most of the time they will be stuck to their phone and LinkedIn anyway. A developer, I wouldn't, unless I've specifically asked them, can we set up a time to call? And then what I do have automated is exactly the same piece of software that Katrina has, where I give them a link. It's like, this is my calendar. Book yourself a 15-minute slot. And, you know, there's 50 of them in my week. So there's loads to choose from. And then what I asked them to put in is their name, their email, their phone number. And if they want to cancel it, they have the link to do that. If they want to reschedule it, they have the link to do that. 2 hours before the call, they get an automated email from the system saying, you've set up a call with Mark from Anaplan. If anything changes, please reschedule or cancel. It saves me a lot of time of not having to do email ping pong. But I get that permission for me to call them and for me to have a phone number. In the past, the number of times where I've lost people or missed people that responded back to me and said, yeah, I want to talk. And like, when do you have time? Can you do Thursday? And they're like, oh yes, Thursday at 3 is good. I'm like, what is your number? And like just back and forth, you end up spending 2 days with that. Yeah. This alleviates that. Yes, I'm going to lose some people who don't like that automation piece of it, but I honestly don't think I'm losing the majority. And I'm fine with that.
Step back though. Can I take that a step back? So you're getting developers on the phone with you. And I know in London there's 5 job vacancies per developer, and it's only going to get worse. Brexit, thank you, Brexit. So just what are you doing in the sourcing that's getting that many people to respond to you?
It's not even that many. Just I'm finding a lot of them. So I'm happily in a role where what we're looking for is something that London has in a lot of. A lot of them are contractors, and that's a problem because that's not what I'm looking for. But they like to talk because they might be looking for their next contract. And that's part of my job to find out, because it doesn't necessarily say that on their profiles if they have a very good profile. So developers don't necessarily have a good LinkedIn profile if they have any. So my job is, that's one of my questions, like, would you be open for, but I do get them, because at the end of the day, they can see that I've looked at their profile or profiles, because developers, you want to look at a couple of them to find out what is, and done enough research to see that the language that I'm looking to hire them to work on is what they do. And that generally, it's.
And I take it when you're doing that messaging, you're doing all the stuff I talk about all the time. You're showing that you've done your research. You're being respectful. You're not talking about that immediate role. You're talking about career. Like, you're being curious, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's not hyper personalized with, me trolling their Facebook profile and finding some old picture from them traveling and referencing that. It's as simple as saying, I looked at you because you obviously have experience in this language that I'm looking for somebody for. And you've worked for this and this company who I know work in that. It doesn't have to go longer than that. But even that is the responses back. It's like, oh, you've actually looked at my profile, which, plus I think another thing as well, because it's one of my pet peeves as well. Very rarely will I get a response on the first email. And I'm the same. I generally don't respond to the first email, because I know that most recruiters, I'm a list of 200 people that they probably haven't really looked at their profile. If they send me a second email, I know that they've actually looked at their profile, and I'm not just, one of the 200 emails they send out per week. And I do the same to my candidates. So, the part of, I haven't automated that, but I could, is the cadence of having I tend to stop at 3 emails because I would get annoyed if somebody didn't, if I didn't answer somebody and they keep emailing me. So I would stop at 3 emails of just, following up and saying, I really do want to talk to you, and this is why, and building out that argument more. And that could be automated. I don't want to yet, so I haven't, but it is something I could automate.
Okay, here's a question then. What do you say on the second one? I'd just be inclined to say, have I been lost in your inbox or something?
Yeah, no, I just say, look, I take the old I basically forward the first email I sent them, and just say, I really do want to talk to you about, what we're doing at the moment. Do you have 15 minutes to talk? It's not further than that. Just going, and the old email is, because I might have gotten stuck somewhere, and also just research on the subject lines, putting an RE in front of it.
Is 15 minutes long enough to know something or not?
I don't need more than, I'm not going to go through their CV and saying, tell me what you've done since college. It's like, I spend 5 minutes talking about what we do, because generally the company I work with, they don't know. And then tell them, it's like, well, tell me a bit about what you're doing now, but not what your job title is, but what you do, and what would be the ideal job for you? I don't need more than 15 minutes. If I do that, then yeah, it could go over. It could be, can we have a call at another time?
So would you say that you have in volume fewer interactions with candidates? You might be speaking with every candidate at least once, but are there fewer interactions overall?
No, I would still have the same. I mean, the difference is I'm not expecting anybody to apply for my jobs, which used to be the kind of big, mainly because I'm not working with a company that is well known, especially in the development industry.
The reason I'm asking is for purely selfish reasons. Recruiters, when they're interviewing, when they're speaking with anyone, whether it be candidates and clients and hiring managers and HR, all of those interactions are points at which they're hoovering up information. They're gathering up intimate market knowledge. And the more market knowledge they have, the better they're able to do the job and sell their expertise. Mm-hmm. If you have fewer or less information coming in from those interactions, then you're far less qualified to do the job, I would say.
Why would I have less interactions though?
Because you have less information coming in, and a lot of them
doing 15 minutes.
Yeah,
I've done 200 of those 15-minute calls in the last 2 months, all with people doing roughly the same job in London. So I don't, that.
Well, so if you're doing that kind of frequency, then fine. But you get what I'm saying. That you're gathering information not just on the individual, but on the marketplace.
But I wouldn't go into the market without having done a lot of research. Like for me to have the conversation with these people, I don't try to tell them that I know what they're technically doing. I know enough for them to know whether we're talking one or the other language in terms of programming. And I can tell them enough about my company for them, to get themselves answered in terms of what tech stack are you working with. But I also, don't try to sound more technical than I am. But in terms of market, I don't need to speak to people for an hour to get more market knowledge. A lot of that kind of, I remember that as well. A lot of both my wife and I are both recruiters, and a lot of the kind of interviews we've been on where you feel like this isn't an interview, you just want to know about my former employer. I mean, both my wife and I had walked out of interviews with exactly that, where it's like, you don't want to talk to me, you want to know my insider knowledge of who I used to work with. I hate that, so I wouldn't do that to somebody. But if I speak to 10 people from the same company over, a couple of months, then I will get the same information than, if I try to put that information out of somebody. And so I don't think that's going to make a difference.
Now, anyway, you can find it all. Anyway, we're a bit off topic, aren't we?
Yeah. No, thank you.
How did you get spirit to being about the 15-minute interview?
Stephen, it was Stephen. Right, I'm going to sorry, Stephen. It's fine. There's a couple of comments in the sidebar I want to share. So, Steve Ward, just running a campaign for a client. It's hiring 20 to 25-year-olds. They are happy to have a scheduled call, but never answer their phone without prior trust. So they want digital confirmation first. And I think that you can use automation through the calendar to do that, but you're still building up to a real life phone call with somebody, which is what we're talking.
So I don't answer my phone if the number doesn't come up.
No.
Great, same.
Oh, I do. Anyone can phone me, but
I'll pick up your voicemail.
Oh, but I don't listen to voice.
But actually, most of the time I'll only pick up a mobile. I won't even pick up a landline. I know that's probably crazy, but most clients actually book straight into my diary via my website rather than that. But I will pick them up. So and they'll all get answered. But it's just like, so there's an element in distrust with everybody, I think.
Yeah, I think there is.
But also because you could be in the middle of something.
But automation doesn't necessarily resolve that. Persistence, resilience, learning how people work. Actually, Mark, I'm going to come back to thing again. I know it's off topic, but so last time I recruited, I was a search consultant a long time ago, 19 years ago. I would get in touch with potential candidates much more than 3 times before I gave up. So
there's a potential, but are they completely cold? There's a difference.
And this is jobs where.
But the world wasn't so noisy. The world is noisy now, and that's the difference.
I will as well. Yes. I just know that if over a month that I do, over 2 weeks that I do more than 3, I've done 4, and I know other recruiters have done 4 as well. you're getting to a point where you start being annoying, and you start getting snarky emails, and that's not what I want. I do 3, and then I might come back to them in a month, because I've done a lot of research to actually get to that point. So there's still people I want to talk to, and I know that I probably hit the right person, but at the wrong time. And I do also get, I mean, I'm still getting responses from February of people that I sent 3 emails and stopped, but I still get a response to that second or third email 2 months later, because they are like, it wasn't the right time, but just I heard of your company, and then it rang a bell.
So other ways of keeping in touch, like obviously I do social media, don't I? So, the having people on Twitter lists and being able to engage with them over and over there, or including them in an appropriate way in a comment, perhaps on LinkedIn or something like that. You know what I mean? Not, when people would go, @Louise, do you want this job? I mean, like, oh, I saw this sort of you, and that kind of stuff we used to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before it was just hound. No. Where you're becoming known, liked, and trusted. Yeah. By the interactions you're having with them.
And that's difficult to do.
Constantly emailing.
Yeah, difficult to do that automation. Right. So we are 35 minutes in. What's that? Sorry, Katrina?
Oh, Steve has written something. I saw a question, by the way, which I thought was quite cool. Now, see, he said the way I pronounced it was correctly, but I don't know if that was Ica or Ika. Have you seen it was Ica. So, yeah. Have you seen a trend in candidates that would prefer to avoid dealing with a recruiter? For example, developers that would prefer to answer a web-based test instead of having a Skype phone conversation. Actually, I've seen the opposite.
Yeah, I was just about to say. So we have the opposite.
I've seen developers who don't want to deal with recruiters, for sure, but the last thing they want to do is end up on a test before anything. So would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah. No, and I mean, I have the added benefit of being an in-house recruiter with a specific company. I get a lot of responses from people who said, this is the first time that I've been contacted directly by the company, which, is news to me, and I don't understand, because there's obviously a lot of more in-house recruiters in the technical area. But I see a lot of developers just like, we're not, used to that, or to just end up in their spam filter, who knows? But yeah, no, absolutely. Anaplan has a thing where after they've spoken to me, they go straight to a face-to-face interview, which I actually like, because I would like that for myself. You've already had the hurdle of me talking to you, so why would you go through lots of tests?
Yeah.
We might have a test, but we do that after they've met somebody in the team face-to-face. If we can get possible within a reasonable time span, we will do a video interview instead of face-to-face, but it's where we can actually see each other. But even the second step being an online test, I have a lot of pushback from the developers. And I have friends who are developers as well. And some of the big companies, before they're even going to talk to them, they're going to send them a test, or they need to show a portfolio or some kind of coding challenge that takes them a weekend. And I had that feedback from a lot of people. So it's so nice just to be able to speak to somebody without having to do a test, because I don't like that. And I understand them. I wouldn't like that.
And why would anybody want to spend 2 days doing a test to then go into the environment and go, ooh, I don't want to work here?
No, exactly.
I mean, thank God that the doors are open now and we can actually see in companies before. But, back in the day, you had to go in, right?
Yeah.
So, it's so inconsiderate of these companies, seriously.
So we are 38 minutes. I would quite like to have a little think about anything we haven't yet covered, which should be automated, which shouldn't be. Just very briefly, Stephen, did you have? And I know you've been involved in the conversation, but have you got something you really think we should or shouldn't?
Well, one of the analogies I was referring to earlier in the day was that recruitment agencies, and I think about things often from an agency point of view, is that recruitment agencies often want to show that they are using automated processes and being more effective and efficient in what they do. And they often try and replicate, say, job boards online on their own websites. But what they neglect to do is to emphasize the human element of what they do and the human capital, the intellectual capital that they have that markets them as experts in their field. So the more that you can show that tip of the iceberg, then I would say the better you're placed to serve your clients, even if all the content of the iceberg below the waterline is automated. Yeah. I believe what's visible should be as human as possible.
Be human. Did you hear that, Katrina?
I was back. I'm so sorry. My doorbell went.
There's an old saying that there's an old saying that if you can fake sincerity, then you'll do very well. And the thing is if you're going to automate lots of processes, at the very least it should appear human. It should have a human aspect to it. There should always be a human element in it. We're talking there about asking candidates to take assessments or questionnaires before they even speak to someone. I would say that if you put in a tiny bit of human element at the start, you'll get their commitment to then go and take the assessment and so on. And it needn't be much, but it really helps the process along. So it's not so much about the things that you won't automate or the things that you can get away with automating. It's about sprinkling in the process at key points that human element that keep people bought into the process and believe that they're speaking with someone that is interested in the content of their CV and their abilities as a candidate. So sprinkling the human element through the process whilst automating the dull and boring parts.
Yeah, I think where companies do that really well when they're now opening the door and being much more real with the employee-generated content. Take like hashtag Life at Dell or
CA.
Oh God, Life at CA, and there's tons of them where they're taken on the fly by people. So it's real. People will run off in the middle of a video chat to answer their phone front door and stuff like that. It's genuine, like what actually happens in a day. Which I think is really, really cool. And then if you've spoken to them and then maybe, spend 2 days doing assessment. They kind of already worked out what it's like to work for you.
Yeah.
So they might do it, but I still don't think it's right to make anyone do that. Oh, he's hitting something else.
So Mark, anything else?
Right. Oh, the opposite written over there.
Yes, yeah, and I'll come to that second. Yeah. So, Mark, anything else that you feel that we should or shouldn't be, or how we should be?
No, I mean, I'm looking at putting more videos into outreach. So rather than having emails is 30 years old now, and we're still using exactly the same format we always have. So I'm looking into and actively kind of working that out. How do I get that human piece of it, getting myself in front of people, essentially saying the same thing, but also getting a time where it takes me the same time to generate that of what I'm saying and getting that out this is me, this is why I want to talk to you, and putting a video in the email rather than just writing it out, because it's so easy just to glance over that and you pick up a few keywords and you decide yes or no. Having a video that says this takes 1.5 minutes, do you have that to watch it? And then you can reply if you want to. If you don't want to, at least I know whether you watched it. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Going back to Steve's comment about they want to know who you are first.
Yeah.
You can send a WhatsApp or an iMessage video.
Yeah.
There's nothing to stop you doing that. If you've got their mobile number, why not?
No.
And that's really human. They hear your voice. I mean, I reckon you can do that on Facebook Messenger as well, but that might freak a few people out.
But that again is something I think I blogged about that about 7 years ago. I got a sales email which had the video. I'd really like to talk to you. This is a 30-second video. Can you see why? And they were a company who was selling that video technology. Yeah. And then I never saw it at the time. Obviously, it wasn't right for them.
Yeah.
But now I think that's an excellent way.
No, there's a couple of companies out there.
Rid of the email altogether.
Sorry.
So just lose the email. Go straight for the video. Like, why not?
A little smiley face saying, talk to me.
Hi, I'm a human being.
So I can make a point before we finish, which is that you can't please everybody. So he's got candidates, passive candidates, who don't want to speak to you or see you or anything until they've done a test, which just shows you cannot.
That was Zalando, so it was probably German.
There's a cultural point there.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm being very facetious.
Yeah, but
they recruit from all over, so I don't know.
But
maybe because it's Zalando and you can see in their door immediately, like look at Zalando Tech. I mean, just seriously, just look at Zalando Tech,
So they know what they're getting. They just want to know. They just want to see what they're like with the.
Yeah, if it says clearly in their process.
Everything. You can see in. Uh-huh. Sorry,
if it says clearly in their process that that's going to be part of it, I would as a candidate. If I knew that I have to go over this hurdle to get any further, not to waste time, it's like, can we just, and if I knew that's probably the one where I'm the least, like the most in doubt that I'm going to, pass that, then let me do that up front, so I don't waste your time or my time or going in for interviews or taking half day off or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about knowing your market, so you're knowing what your candidates are. That's what recruitment's about anyway. And so the amount of human you're going to be is about understanding who you're hiring, why they want to join you, how you need to interact with them. That isn't anything to do with automation.
Can I just say something on that Steve just wrote? So Steve Ward's just written, in every 1,000 candidates, you need about 10 different forms of approach. We can't exclude any method that has some impact. Flipping that around the other way, I had somebody who was introduced to me on Facebook Messenger who I responded to, didn't reply. So I sent them an email. They then replied and said, about a week later, and said, oh no, I use Twitter DM. And I'm going, hang on, you run your own business, which is a bit like being a recruiter in a way. You should have every door open available. Like, you're the other way. So candidates can contact you wherever they want.
Yes.
And that's how it should be. Yes, it makes it hard to keep track of, I'm not denying. But we shouldn't be going, well, just because I prefer that.
That's why you should answer your phone, Katrina, when it's a landline calling you.
Who has landlines anymore?
Oh, yeah.
You know how often I answer a landline call and I'm being sold. Oh my God.
It's not a mobile, it is a landline.
I'm just saying. Honestly, my landline only rings when it's an Indian call centre.
Yeah, right, okay, so thank you very much. I think there was loads of things we covered, but in summary, I didn't like Stephen using the word sprinkle human on. That made me feel slightly awkward. Let's not be
like a scatting after a cremation.
Let's not be sprinkling anything. But I think that what we're saying is that automation works where it's the right place, and we should be just the right amount of human in order to get it right. So thank you very much.
We need to be ourselves and they need to be themselves, and let's just remember that.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So thank you very much to Firefish for sponsoring our live chat, who automate loads of stuff really well and then encourage you not to when you shouldn't. To Stephen for joining me as our co-host. I'm really sorry we couldn't get you on, Pete. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much, Katrina. We'll see you in 1 week's time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Yes.